On today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast, actor Jacob Elordi is saying that he was asked to audition for the upcoming James Gunn Superman movie, but he refused because he said it was too dark. Also, the actor strike is over, and now we've got some details about how they got over the humps of the Residuals issue and the AI issue. Also, the upcoming Zack Snyder Netflix film Rebel Moon just dropped its first full trailer, and it's surprisingly good. Also, I'm going to go into why Disney is an absolute disgrace for the way they try to mislead their audiences with their final pathetic The Marvels trailers. We'll go into that a little bit. Tom Hiddleston is saying the Loki season 2 is not just over. His time playing Loki is over. Is he telling the truth? The first Garfield trailer with Chris Pratt doing the voice has come out, and it's actually, I'm going to admit, it's a little cuter than I thought it would be. And The Marvels has the lowest opening weekend at the box office of any MCU film ever. We're going to talk about that and a whole bunch more. The John Campea Show podcast starts right now. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet, the John Campea Show podcast, coming to you from right here in our quaint little studio, brought to you in part by our main sponsors over at Mint Mobile. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, TV and streaming, and all sorts of good stuff. Not just giving you our opinions, but giving you some information and context so you guys can form your own well-informed opinions, whether the same or a little bit different than ours. Joining us in studio today, we have Ray Ora.
Hey.
Jonathan Voico's here.
He's back.
Writer, director, producer Robert Meyer Burnett is here.
I'm back too.
And you guys are back. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to start off by going over those predetermined topics that I just listed off. Then in the last part of the show, we're going to take your questions and comments. We're going to take them from our beloved YouTube channel members who we a little bit earlier today asked to send in some topics. We're going to go through as many of those as we can. But if you're watching live, you can use the super chat feature in the live chat and we'll get to those questions, provided your topic or question you submit is appropriate to be used. And we'll go over that at or near the end of the show. All right, guys, that down. Let's start off with this. Actor Jacob Elordi, what was the name of his films on Netflix? Like The Kissing Booth those things, whatever they were, right? But he's pretty hot right now. He's got I think it's called Sunburn coming out. Saltburn. He's got Priscilla. He's got a movie called Oh Canada coming out. Pretty hot right now. Well, you guys know that James Gunn has this little Superman movie coming. Superman Legacy. Coming in 2025. Well, he announced on social media, I believe it's July of 2025. I think now we've got an actual release date for it, which is great. And we already know we've got our Superman cast. We've got our Lois Lane cast. But apparently, Jacob Elordi himself was asked to come in and read for the role. And having read it over, he refused to audition for it. Why? Because he said it's too dark. This comes to us from the folks over at Variety who wrote the following. Elordi has, by the way, I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing Elordi's last name right, but at any rate, Elordi has a banner acting year thanks to roles in Sofia Coppola's Priscilla and Edmund Fennell's Saltburn. He currently is in production with Paul Schrader on the film Oh Canada. Can't wait to find out what that's about. And there's a third season of the HBO hit series Euphoria to shoot next year. He revealed in a new interview with GQ that he turned down a request to audition for Superman. I'm supposed to finish it with never say never, he added about the answer on how to answer about superhero movies. Well, they asked me to read for Superman. That was immediately no thank you. That's too much. That's too dark for me. No thank you. It's too much. It's too dark for me. Is this James Gunn's Superman that they're talking about? Because what does that mean? Now, listen, James Gunn has already gone out of his way to let people know, it's like, listen, yeah, I directed certain movies that had a certain tone and a certain feel, but that doesn't mean all the stories I'm going to tell are that way. And it doesn't necessarily mean the way that I would tell a Superman story. So it sounds like he might be going a little bit darker, but what exactly is too dark? I mean, I haven't seen Saltburn yet, but I've seen the trailers. That doesn't look like a happy, skippy, good looking time. I mean, that looks like it's a little dire and dark. So what exactly does too dark mean? I mean, maybe he's joking around. Because, by the way, in other parts of that interview, he was talking about how He doesn't even like the kissing booth movies that he did. He doesn't like other certain types of movies. He says he doesn't believe in doing one for you and one for me because it ends up doing 15 for them and none for me. So he comes across as a little pompous.
He told me he hates acting.
But yeah, he just hates acting. But I mean, hey, he's taking his craft very, very seriously. And I just thought it was a very interesting quote. He says, yeah, it's too much. It's too dark for me. Rob, you heard this quote. I mean, this dude is one of the up-and-comers.
Yeah.
He would have been a good Superman too, I think. But what did you think about the comment?
Well, it's kind of weird because I'm sure they didn't give him the whole script to read. So I don't know if he was making a joke or what.
Well, he had, from what I understood, they did have, because remember the guy who got the role, he said they did send out acts of the film so they could know how to come in and audition for it.
Sure. But I don't know, man. I mean, I can't imagine. Did you see on X, James Gunn put up the release date of Superman? Was it July 25th or something?
Yeah, I think he did that on Threads.
And it was on. I saw it on Extra Threads, and I'm like, okay, there's the release date. It looked pretty happy to me, bright and shiny Superman colors.
And you got Nathan Fillion's going to be in there as a Green Lantern.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that James Gunn would make a dark Superman movie. I don't know. I mean, maybe he was just talking about Superman in general. I don't know. You know, because the last Superman, all three of Zack Snyder's Superman movies are pretty dark, literally and figuratively.
Yeah. And I don't know. Well, I mean, maybe it was thematically because much like Thor Ragnarok, which is a very funny movie, but has some of the darkest stuff that has ever happened in the MCU happens in that movie. James Gunn has had some pretty dark and dire things happen in his movies while having the DNA of something that was lighter and whatever. So maybe it was that stuff that he was talking about thematically, but I just thought it was an interesting little thing that I saw pop up in the major news feeds this morning. So I thought we'd talk about it for a bit. All right, guys, with that down, let's go on and talk about this, shall we? The writers and the actors strikes are now over. Production has begun. The machine has started to move again. Unfortunately, there was massive amounts of collateral damage. You've heard me complain about that, but be that as it may, things are up and running. Now, we said for a long time that while there were many issues on the table, the two main holdups, and I've been telling you guys this for a couple of months, was the issue of residuals, that the actors were just asking for stuff they were never going to get, and the issues of AI. There were just studios asking for things that they were never going to get. And it looks like they got over those humps, they came to an agreement, and it's done. And now we have a report. There's a 128-page report, 128-page deal. That's how big the deal is, 128 pages. And SAG has just sent out an 18-page summary to all of its members. But Deadline has taken that and basically broke down the bigger issues. And without going into all the other, and there were many other important issues, I thought we would take a second here and take a peek at, well, how did they ultimately resolve the residuals? And how did they ultimately resolve AI? And there's some interesting things in there. Now, you guys might remember that on the residual side, the union was asking for a levy on every single subscriber that a streaming service has, which was idiotic for them to ask for. They knew they were never going to get it. But they did come to an agreement. This comes us from Deadline that says the following. Applicable to series, miniseries, and long-form motion pictures that have an initial exhibition on or after January 1st, 2024, so not stuff that comes out in the next month and a half, but starting in January. As tonight's summary states, that jointly trusted a fund for success payments on streaming projects viewed by at least 20% of a particular streamer's domestic subscribers in the first 90 days seems less unprecedented, as SAG-AFTRA called the deal last week, and more in line with what the WGA got in its deal in September. Okay, so what the actors got was not really residual. Residuals are dead. What they got was what the writers got, which is basically a bonus. And the way it's structured for the actors is very similar to the way it was structured for the writers. If we put up a movie or show that in its first 90 days gets a minimum 20% of our subscriber base watching it. In the case of Netflix, Netflix has 77 million American subscribers. That means 15.4 million people would have to watch a movie that they drop in the first 90 days. So no joy for the people over at Suits. That's been the number one streaming show in the world for a number of months because that show came out 7 years ago, not 90 days ago. So within 90 days, if you put up a movie or put up an episode of a show, if 15.4 million of your subscribers tune in to watch it in the first 90 days, you get a bonus. And the bonus is going to be divided. 75% of the bonus will go directly to the actors involved in the shows, and 25% of the bonus will go to the SAG union that will set up a fund, and they'll figure out how to distribute that extra 25% later. So basically, residuals are done. This is a bonus system, a success bonus. So if you're in a show and it doesn't get to 15.4 million viewers until day 91, no bonus for you. Only big successful things will get the bonus. All right. So that's how they handled the residual thing. How did they handle the AI thing? I've lost my spot. Here it is. Certainly when it comes to the bitterly fought AI protection provisions, the exceptions to consent section of the 18-page summary is going to raise more than just a few eyebrows with its broad caveats. Now, before I read the rest of it, let me tell you basically what they settled on here. You can't use a digital representation of somebody in a movie without their permission. Pretty straightforward, right? Because that's not what the studios wanted. The studios wanted to be able to scan an actor in their movie and then in perpetuity be able to use that image even after the person died and not have to get permission of the estate or the union or anybody. And that was ridiculous that they were asking for that. So they basically came to the AA, you got to get their permissions, but with one big exception. Here it is. According to the summary, studios and producers don't have to acquire performers' consent if the AI use is for post-production alterations, editing, arranging, rearranging, revising, or manipulating of photography and or soundtrack for purposes of cosmetics, wardrobe, noise reduction, timing or speed, continuity, pitch or tone, clarity, addition of visual / sound effects, or filters, standards and practices, ratings, or adjustments in dialogue or narration or other similar purposes. Or for that matter, under any circumstances when dubbing or use of a double is permitted under the codified basic agreement or television agreement. So basically, what they're saying is, okay, let's pull out the name of an actor, Martin Sheen, okay? Martin Sheen is going to appear in a movie. Okay. If he's starring in that movie and he's getting paid to be in that movie, then the studio has the right to digitally use his image in anything to edit the movie or to make slight changes to it, whether it's to their costume, a word that they say, the hair, whatever, right? Outside of that movie, they're always going to have to get Martin Sheen's consent, but inside the movie that they're already in. And I'll tell you what, Rob, they're saying in Deadline that that's going to cause a lot of stir with some of the actors. I think this is common sense. I think, like, if you're going to be in the movie and you're paid to be in the movie, as an actor, you don't get to decide what the wardrobe is or what the hairstyle is going to be or whatever. And so I think if it's in post-production, it's like, you know what? We really want him to turn to the left instead of turning to the right. They should be able to digitally have you turn to the left. If they think, you know what, we wanted his jacket to be blue instead of green. Okay, they should be able to make it blue. I have no problem with the fact that they don't have to constantly go back and get the actor's permission to make a change in the movie they are paid to be in. But I'm really glad they got the establishment of anything outside that, you need to get their permission. And if they've died, you need to get the union's permission and the estate's permission. And Look, I don't think any of us are surprised that it came out something to look like something that the Writers Guild got with Residuals. And I kind of think they ended up on a common sense place with AI as well. What did you think about the details that we got?
Well, you know, obviously this bonus situation is something that had to happen in some way, shape, or form. But again, you know, you have to realize that those streamers are then pulling out money from their earnings, from their subscriptions. It's not like they're getting money from sponsors being paid for a commercial. This is something that the streamers are going to have to shell out themselves. Yeah, which I thought was interesting. Believed in it. I think it's good. Let's make sure their numbers and their accounting is good too. So, but on the AI front, first of all, I got to tell you, Justine Bateman has been the actress.
Yes, I saw her comments.
She's been writing.
She's from Family Ties, by the way. She played Michael Keaton's sister.
You know, back in the old days when they had like Spy Magazine, they relentlessly made fun of her. They would call her Just Seen Bateman. I am so impressed. I don't know if she underwent some kind of a renaissance. I mean, I don't know. That was just something I remembered from like the 80s and 90s. Her analysis of the AI situation has been really, really compelling. And she's been doing really great deep dives into what AI or how AI can be used in relation to actors. I think it's essential reading. I mean, I don't know enough about the subject of the technology that's emerging, but I would encourage anybody who's really interested in not just AI for films and television, but AI in general, where we're going. I'm not so sure after reading what she's saying that there's enough protections for the actors. Because look, once someone's scanned, once you have a digital double, you know, anybody can call up and go, hey, you know that scan of Martin Sheen you made? Can we borrow that? You know, who's going to know? You know, and we're going to use it because, hey, we're doing a special edition of Apocalypse Now. We're going to de-age him and put him into some scenes where make it look better, do something. I mean, I think that the protections need to be even more, but I think it's a good place to start because I don't think we truly understand the ramifications of where we're going with AI.
All right, guys, what do you think about that? They settled the residuals issue. They settled the II. I mean, look, they're going to probably work out more terms in 3 years as they have to every 3 years, but we'll see how this thing evolves as they go. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on and talk about this, shall we? The Marvels is now out and in theaters, and you know it's polarizing. There are critics that like it, critics that don't. I mean, it's got a 62% critic score and 84%. The last time I checked, 84% audience score. It doesn't mean the audience loved it. It just means 84% of them said they liked it. But it's been very polarizing and what have you. But one of the big things we've talked about the Marvels over the past number of months is it's pedestrian, is what we called it, a pedestrian ad campaign that really didn't do much to get people excited for. Well, then all of a sudden, in the final 2 weeks leading up to the Marvels coming out, they put out a couple of spots. And in both of those spots, in the first one in particular, they show Thanos. And Thanos saying something, a line that was never in any of the other movies, saying the line, you know, there will always be somebody to carry on my work or whatever. And it's like, whoa, wait, what? What? Did that just give us a glimpse into a little bit about what this movie's about? Because we didn't really know at the time. But then they put out what they called their final trailer. And in that final trailer, they made it very clear. Thanos, or at least his plan, was an important part of this upcoming Marvels movie. When it said this, Captain Marvel says in the final main trailer, we destroyed Thanos, but it's not over. Then it cuts to Thanos' voice. My work is inevitable. There will always be more to finish it. And the moment he says it, there will always be more to finish it, hard cut to Dar-Ben, the new villain in the Marvels. The message implied here is clear. They were telling the audience, hey guys, we got some Thanos carryover in this Marvels movie. We know none of you have bought tickets yet because Campea pulled up the seating charts of the AMC theaters and we saw that, behold, there are none. Nobody was buying seats. So we felt like we should let you guys know that Thanos' plan, and maybe Thanos himself, might have something to do with this. We destroyed Thanos, but it isn't over. My work is inevitable. There will always be more to finish it. Dar-Ben. At the very least, we now know what the motivation of the villain is. We get, oh, okay, this is about somebody carrying on, trying to finish off what Thanos was doing. And listen, I'm going to give a pass. I'm going to give a pass to the fact that they so desperately and pathetically brought up Tony Stark and Captain America and completely unrelated shots of like Captain America on the punch bag. Whatever, we understood that was kind of member berries. That was member berries. Hey guys, remember how much you love the MCU? Okay, that's pathetic and desperate, but I'll allow it. Okay, fine. You want to be pathetic and desperate? Fine. That whatever. I don't have a problem with that. But then when you progress to make the trailer intentionally, premeditatedly, with intent and with malice, trick your audience into thinking the movie was about something entirely different, that is not just pathetic, it's a disgrace. Disney is a disgrace. Shut up, Siri. Disney is a disgrace for that. Now, some people might say, but John, what about Infinity War with the Hulk and everybody running in the thing? That was a shot. That was a single shot. Like, you want to do a little bit of misdirection, like saying a shot, but guess what? All those characters are in the movie. They are in Wakanda. There is a big battle going on. It didn't deceive us. Those little misdirection shots didn't deceive us. Oh, there were 3 stones instead of 5 stones in Thanos' gauntlet there. Okay, that didn't deceive us about what is the basic idea about this movie. What is this movie about? And is the greatest villain ever in the MCU making a return, or is at least his presence being felt? And at the risk of giving away a spoiler, it has butt fuck nothing to do with this movie. There is no reference to Thanos. Dar-Ben has in no way connected to Thanos, nor is anything she's trying to do in the movie remotely connected to Thanos. Matter of fact, she did have a pretty interesting motivation that they could have put into the trailer so we could have got, oh, okay, that's what this villain's about. But they didn't do that. They didn't do anything worthwhile in their marketing campaign whatsoever. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But right now I want to talk about what an utter disgrace Disney is. Because I get you're trying to market to sell tickets, and there are ways to do that. But to look at your audience, to look at your fans with utter contempt and disrespect and say, let's just lie to them. We won't say, hey, everybody, Thanos is in this movie, but we'll kind of say it, and we'll repeat it, and we'll make it look like that's exactly what this is about. We destroyed Thanos, but it isn't over. That has nothing to do with the movie. My work is inevitable. There will always be more to finish it. That had nothing to do with the movie. Hard smashing to Dar-Ben, suggesting that she is the one carrying on the work of Thanos. There's no connection between Dar-Ben and Thanos. There's nothing to do with Thanos in this. And yet Disney, intentionally, with malice and with premeditation, went to their audience to say, hey, listen, we're not selling any tickets. Campea showed us the charts. There's nobody buying seats. So we're just going to have to lie to you. Is that cool? No, it's not fucking cool. And I hope Bob Iger fires whoever was responsible for this. Look, sometimes you're going to put out movies and they're great, and sometimes you're going to put out movies and they're not so great. And we'll talk about that. And I've talked a lot over the past year or two about how Disney or Marvel's kind of lost its magic a little bit. But, that's fine. You make good movies, you make bad movies. Making good movies is a really hard thing. We can talk about that and still be fans and all that kind of stuff. But this is a horse of a different color. You fucking lied to your audience. And everybody's letting them get. I haven't seen one person bring this up anywhere. It's like, hey, did anybody notice how Disney just fucking bald-faced lied to their audience and tried to trick them into thinking that this was part of their overall thing? I think it's disgusting. Somebody needs to be fired over there for this. And it really, quite frankly, pisses me off that they did this. Disney, you're a disgrace. People need to get fired. This is total, utter bullshit. I get really worked up when you fucking disrespect the fans. When you try to take advantage of or lie to these people that have made you successful for so long, Rob. It really irritated me. Anyway, Rob. Oh, and by the way, at the end of that last main trailer says, will you be there when everything changes? Listen, I'm not going to give a spoiler away for what happens in the post-credit scene. All I'm going to say is it ain't nothing we hadn't seen already in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. That's all I'm going to say. So not only does this had nothing to do with Thanos, not only did it have nothing to do with his work, not only did Dar-Ben have absolutely no connection to Thanos, but this whole be there when everything, nothing changed. Nothing changed. Anyway, Rob, what's your thoughts on this whole situation?
Well, I mean, for myself, I can say that I was really curious to see how Thanos fit into all this. because I had seen that final trailer, and I was excited to go see the movie. I mean, I liked the first Captain Marvel. I liked it a lot more than most people did. I don't think it was top tier MCU, but for a science fiction film and to introduce the Skrulls, I liked it. I thought it was interesting. It
was mid-tier MCU.
Mid-tier, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the relationship she had with Nick Fury. I liked seeing Coulson back. I mean, I liked it. So I went into this movie, and with this extra Thanos idea, I was like, wow, we haven't seen Thanos in the trailers or anything. And the fact that they mentioned him in this, and like there's an exchange, I expected, literally I walked into the theater waiting for this Thanos scene to happen. Like, what was it going to be? Was it going to be even if it was just him picking up the Infinity Gauntlet or saying something like, if you want to do something right, do it yourself. Even if it was something like that. And by the end of the movie, I was perplexed. Like, I literally was perplexed. I'm like, did I really see that? Did I mishear it? Was it not it wasn't in the movie? And neither was Thanos. And so I'm more curious because they put this trailer out literally almost moments before the movie opened. And I'm thinking to myself, like you, I'm like, I mean, I felt for me personally, John, I was directly lied to.
Yeah.
And I went in expecting something, and it distracted ultimately my viewing experience because I kept waiting for this thing to happen. And when it was over, I was perplexed that it didn't.
Yeah.
And that I took that out of the theater with me. I mean, I was not a big fan of the movie for other reasons, but that was unnecessary.
I mean, and again, I get the member berries part. Like, it looks very dreamy, and you're saying, hey, guys, the MCU, this is part of the MCU. Remember Iron Man? Remember Captain? Oh, that's, again, I thought it was pathetic and desperate, but not offensive that they did it. But when they start going, you start hearing Carol saying, but we destroyed Thanos, but it's not over. And then Thanos, my work carries on. Boom, Darben. It's like, they clearly, listen, they may not have come out and said, had Kevin Feige pop on screen and go, hey, everybody, part of Thanos' plan is a part of this thing. There's a connection between Thanos and Darben. Okay, that didn't happen, but they clearly intentionally made that the implied message to the audience. That's what they wanted the audience to come away from. And I think it's disgusting. I think it's disgusting. I think it's beneath them. And again, I think it's a disgrace that they did it. Anyway, guys, with that down, now that I've done my rant for the day, we still got to talk about a few things here. Tom Hiddleston is saying he's done playing Loki. The first Garfield trailer has come out. Also, The Marvels has its lowest opening. Good, now they deserve it, that any MCU film has ever had. But before we get to those, we're going to take a quick second here and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at HelloFresh and Quip. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Quip. Guys, you know that good health starts with good habits, and Quip makes it easy by delivering all the oral care essentials that you need to care for your mouth. For example, their incredible electric toothbrush. Guys, I've been using electric toothbrushes for years, and this is easily the best one I've ever owned. Timed sonic vibrations with 30-second pulses to guide a dentist-recommended 2-minute clean. A lightweight and sleek design for adults and kids with no wires or bulky charger to weigh you down. Reusable handles in a range of sleek metal hues, as well as bright plastic colors, sure to make a pop on your bathroom counter. Skip the batteries and snap into healthy habits with the new rechargeable electric toothbrush. All the features of the original Quip, plus one magnetic charge, powers up to 3 months of brushing. In addition to brush heads, Quip also delivers fresh floss, toothpaste, mouthwash, and gum refills every 3 months from just $7. So if you go to getquip.com/Campea right now, you'll get 20% off any electric toothbrush, mint and gum dispenser, or water flosser. That's your 20% off any electric toothbrush, mint and gum dispenser, water flosser at getquip.com/Campea. That's GETQUIP.com/Campea. Quip, the good habits company. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Guys, the holidays are right around the corner, and HelloFresh can help take the stress out of dinner by delivering everything you need to cook up tasty meals right to your door, saving you tons of time. We all know the holidays can be hectic, and that's That's where HelloFresh's 15-minute meals come in. These quick fixes help you get a wholesome meal on the table in less time than it takes to get delivery. I've told you guys many times before that Ann and I, being working professionals, often would struggle when it comes to dinner time, having time to put something that tastes good and is healthy for us in front of us. Well, HelloFresh, with their great delivery, pre-portioned ingredients, easy to follow instructions, has made dinner time a fun time. So go to HelloFresh.com/CampeaFree and use the code CampeaFree for breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/CampeaFree with the code CampeaFree. And thank you to our friends at HelloFresh and Quip for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, that down. Let's move on to this, shall we? We already got our first little peek at the upcoming Netflix movie, Rebel Moon, being directed by Zack Snyder. Actually, it's going to be two movies. There's going to be part one and then part two. But the other day, they put out a full-length feature trailer for Rebel Moon. And this time, they gave us a little bit of an idea of the story, of what's going on in it. And I got to tell you, it looks pretty good. It looks pretty damn good. Now, listen, like or dislike Zack Snyder, I think one thing that most people can agree upon is visually, Zack Snyder is a dynamic director. Like he makes visual such a centerpiece of his story. And I'm not just talking about visual effects. I'm talking he knows really how to tell stories through visuals. Some may say he struggles at telling story through traditional methods of telling story, but I think most people agree he is a dynamic, very visionary kind of visual storyteller. And the visuals, I think, of Rebel Moon looked fantastic. The cast looks great. Getting a little bit of a sense of the story sounded good. And I'll tell you what, listen, the job of a trailer is to make you more excited than you were. Even if you had no excitement or okay excitement or high excitement, take wherever your excitement level is and bump it up. And this trailer did that for me. Because now we got a bit of a sense of the story. It's kind of some classic storytelling in here, rising up, take down the overlords, whatever, but it fit well. Visually looks good. I love the cat. Jaimon Hansu is just a beast. Do we find out how old he is?
59.
Jaimon Hansu is 59 years old.
I almost nailed it. I said he's got to be near 60.
Getting close to 60.
Nice.
You see the physique on that guy in this trailer? Like, he is buff as hell in this thing. And then, of course, you got Jax from Sons of Anarchy in there. So, I mean, kind of like a Han Solo scoundrel character, I suppose. He's going to be playing in there. Listen, I got to tell you, for me, winner trailer. That doesn't mean I think the movie's necessarily going to be great. Maybe it'll be terrible. We've seen lots of great trailers for terrible movies. All I'm talking about is the trailer. And I thought the trailer was really, really sharp. I thought it was a solid trailer. Got me more excited in seeing it. But I will mention one thing. And not many people are going to understand this reference. Rob is going to understand this reference. He and I haven't talked about this. Rob is going to get this reference. I don't think many of the rest of you will. But halfway through the trailer, and remember, I really like the trailer. Make no mistake. But I'm going to point one thing out. I half expected after one of the cuts to see her walk into a room and say, "We need somebody to help us fight." And we were going to see George Papard as Space Cowboy. Saying, sure, because basically this movie is the plot of Among the Stars.
Battle Beyond the Stars.
Beyond the Stars. Battle Beyond the Stars. Where, and actually a little bit to a degree, Seven Samurai, actually.
Which Battle Beyond the Stars is a remake of?
Based
which
off.
Which is Magnificent Seven remakes Seven Samurai, and Battle Beyond the Stars remakes Magnificent Seven.
So the classic story of somebody needing to go out and find warriors to help band together and stand up against the titanical overlord. And yes, I have expected to see George Papard in there with a big cigar, call himself Space Cowboy. But classic storytelling, great visuals. Rob, for me, this trailer's a winner. And I am more looking forward to seeing this now than I was. What did you think about it?
Dude, I got to say, I thoroughly enjoyed this trailer. And for the reason you shouted out, Battle Beyond the Stars came out in 1980. It was directed by Jimmy Murakami, and it was produced by Roger Corman. Has a great James Horner score. It has all these great actors like George Papard in it. And John Boy Walton himself,
That's right.
plays Shad.
The main hero.
And so Shad he's never been off his planet before. Akira is the name of the planet. It's a tribute to Akira. And they go and he has to recruit all these people. And they have to fight against this villain named Sador of the Malmori. And one of my favorite things in any movie is they go to this character who's basically like a giant lizard man. And they're like, so you need fighters. Like, who are you fighting? And I'm paraphrasing. And he goes, oh, well, we're fighting Sador. And the lizard man goes, Sador of the Malmori? I'm only in this for Sador. I want his head. And then John Boy looks back and goes, oh, well, you're welcome to it. And it's that whole idea of some, although it looks like Sophia Boutella is a little bit more of a badass than John Boy Walton was, Richard Thomas. But just the plot of it, I mean, everything about this appealed to me. All the actors, they look like it doesn't look hammy. The Battle Beyond the Stars is a little.
Oh no, it's very hammy.
It's very hammy. They got it. But it's fun. It's fun. But this looks like it's hardcore. This looks like a heavy metal magazine kind of thing. They're going for that vibe, and I'm like, man, bring it on, dude. I just hope that people stop talking about the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
Be like, look, he's bringing us his own universe he's creating. Let's go. Let's support him. Let's go. I want to dive into that Rebel Moon Part 1. Destiny's Child.
I didn't love, I'm not going to pretend I loved it, but I got a big kick out of Army of the Dead. The one that Snyder did. I can't remember. Did you?
I didn't dig it.
Okay, you didn't.
I didn't. I mean, I appreciated it. It just seemed a little. I didn't believe it after a while. I'm like, what the hell? Come on. But it was cool. I wanted to like it more. This has that look. He's got this look that he's. It's kind of. I like seeing this shot in both the real world and then how he's using stagecraft.
Yeah.
I thought this movie looks cool. I mean, to me, I watched this trailer, John, and it made me feel like I felt when I saw the trailer for Battle Beyond the Stars when I was 13.
Now, this brings up a question for me, though, which is, I think all of us have enjoyed Sophia Boutella in her film so far.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it was she kind of burst on the scene for most people with, I almost said League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, The King's Men. Of course, she kind of bursted on the scene there. Then I thought she was really strong in that one Star Trek film. I really liked her a lot in that.
The Mummy.
J-Lo.
The Mummy, again, I mean, many problems with that movie. She wasn't one of the problems. I loved her in the John Wick action film with Charlize Theron.
Atomic Blonde.
Yeah. I really liked her in Atomic Blonde, but Sophia Boutella has never had to do a lot of acting in any of those, right? She's never had to carry a lot of the weight. We haven't had a chance to see Sophia Boutella be the lead of a film. And this is going to be her opportunity. So I'm actually really interested to see how well she's going to be able to navigate that.
In the trailer, there's a trope that we've seen a lot lately, which is the mild-mannered person who you think is just normal is actually somebody who's a badass in disguise. We saw it in Nobody. We saw it in this trailer. And I love the moment when that person finally opens up and
reveals themselves,
reveals their badassness. I don't know if you've seen the trailer for the new Mark Wahlberg movie where he plays a dad.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet, but I've had a few people tell me about it.
You know what? I understand. We've seen it 1,000 times, but there's something about that trailer I really liked. And it has that moment where mild-mannered dude like Bob Odenkirk and Nobody is revealed to be super secret badass agent. And we saw that in Sophia Boutella's, like, people are threatening her people, and then she just opens up and lays waste to dudes.
Which was very reminiscent of the bus scene in Nobody.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I'm like, man, I'm so in. Count me in. Because I love just that scene. Give me a movie with that scene in it, I'll watch the movie.
All right, guys, are you looking forward to Rebel Moon? What did you think about the trailer? Again, it took my anticipation level for this movie and bumped it up several notches. I think it looks great. What did you guys think about it? All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this. Tom Hiddleston has just suggested that he may be done playing Loki. Of course, Loki season 2 just ended, and I thought it was miles better than Loki season 1. I really enjoyed Loki season 2. I had a few nitpick issues with the actual ending of it here and there, but overall, I loved the season. I thought it was really great. But it brought up a lot of questions. Are they going to do a Loki season 3? Now, some of you guys might remember that the showrunner, well, he isn't the showrunner because they haven't had showrunners up till now, but the guy writing Loki said, look, we approached Loki as 2 chapters. All right, chapter 1 was season 1, and chapter 2 was being the closing chapter of it with season 2, and that's it. And he said, we never thought of it anywhere beyond there. Well, Tom Hiddleston was on Jimmy Fallon, the other night and was straight up asked, like, are you going to play Loki again? And well, this report comes to us from Forbes. That's what he said. Tom Hiddleston said, it's the conclusion to season 2. It's also the conclusion to 6 films and 12 episodes and 14 years of my life, Hiddleston said, noting that he was 29 when he was first cast as Loki and is now 42. It's been an entire third of his life, and it is not exactly stunning that he would eventually be moving on, even as the MCU will continue around him. Now, while I am not here to call Tom Hiddleston a liar, I will call him a liar.
Are his pants on fire?
Let me rephrase. I think probably he's telling the truth to a degree. I think he's telling the truth in the sense that they probably did look at Loki season 2 as being the end for Loki. I mean, ultimately, when you get to the last scene of Loki season 2, where else is there for him to go? Actually, he can't leave. He can't get out of that chair. I don't know how he handles bathroom breaks, whatever, but he can't get out of that chair.
Absorbs it, puts it into the timelines.
That's right. He drops it just in random time. There's a variant for you. Anyway, so I get all that. And maybe he actually believes it when he says, that's the conclusion for me playing Loki. It's the conclusion to 12 episodes, 14 years of my life. That's the conclusion. I think maybe even to a degree he believes it. But I also think when George Lucas said Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was going to be the last Indiana Jones film ever, I think he believed it at the time. And of course, eventually we got Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I believed it when Jay-Z said, I'm done making albums. And of course, we got another one. I believed it when, was it Soderbergh who said, I'm retired from making movies. Well, that was 7 movies ago. You know, I think he believes it, but remember a while ago, Rob, we were quoting one of the big executives over at Marvel saying, our game plan is always to have Thor and Loki reunite. And I think that is probably, it looks like I'm Loki here. Look at, there he is.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. And I think they probably do. And I think even if Tom Hiddleston thinks he's done, it's going to be like The Godfather 3. Every time I say him out, they pull me back in. I think we will see. Listen, I believe him, but I really do think we're going to see Tom Hiddleston as Loki again. But listen, he's not wrong. He's put in 14 years. He's done movies and now several seasons of TV. He's given us maybe the most iconic Comic-Con appearance ever when he came out on stage in full garb saying, I'm Loki of Asgard and I'm burdened with glorious purpose. One of the greatest moments ever in the history of Comic-Con. There it is right there. He's done his duty. He's paid his due. He has delivered. Because I think whatever you think of the MCU, I think we all agree. Tom Hiddleston as Loki is one of the shining points of the MCU. Even if you're an MCU hater, I think most people will agree with that. So if he is done, maybe he deserves it. I don't know, Rob, what did you think of his comments? And do you think we've actually seen the last of Loki, of son of Laufey, adopted son of Odin? What do you think?
I did watch that. I did watch that clip, and I was surprised by it. I didn't know that he was going to say that in the clip when I watched it.
Neither did Kevin Feige.
No, you know what? But it's to be expected. I mean, he's a secondary player, and the Loki he's playing isn't even the real Loki. Is a different Loki from the timeline.
No, it's the same Loki, just picked up from one point in time.
Sure, but he didn't go through the evolution of what he had to go through. And
he didn't experience Ragnarok.
Yeah, he didn't experience Ragnarok. So and his mom and all that. But I do think that I really liked. You and I were talking about this before the show started. I really like where they left it with him. Like in the comics, in a way, Loki has become the god of stories, the god of the multiverse. And look, if they're going to do Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars or whatever the hell they're going to do, because God knows what they're going to do and make it work, we're going to see Loki again in some way, shape, or form. There's no way they can lean more into this multiverse saga and not show us Loki, who's now in control of the multiverse. But like you said, I think he believes that. I don't think anyone's called him. I don't think they've decided they want him yet, but I could see it happening.
So I'll point out, Robert Downey Jr. also said he was done playing Iron Man. We know he's going to be back. They'll all be back at some point, or maybe they won't. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, the other day we talked on the show about how the first Garfield poster arrived, to which I said, cute poster. Who on earth is asking for a Garfield movie? I used to read Garfield. I remember I was a little kid, Rob. I was in elementary school, and they'd have the book ordering day where they bring in the little things you could check off.
Scholastic books.
Scholastic book day. And I would always love to get the large rectangular Garfield collections, right? I used to love Garfield. Who doesn't love Garfield? But nobody cares. Nobody wants another Garfield movie. And I said that as much. Well, they dropped the trailer. All right. I would be lying if I didn't say it was cute. It was cute. I may have even smiled. I might have even laughed out loud when Samuel L. Jackson said, "Have you ever jumped from a train?" And then Garfield replies, "I've never jumped." Which, if you grew up with Garfield, is such a Garfield thing to say. Like that was my bedroom floor right there. That
and
was
then
it.
Transformers on the wall.
With Transformers images on the wall and Garfield collections on the floor. Look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I now believe this is going to be a good movie. I still don't. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this is going to win everybody over and this is going to get big box office. I still don't think it will. I don't think anybody's asking for a Garfield movie. But I call it like I see it. The trailer was cute. When little baby Garfield comes up and he meets John for the first time, and I got to find out who was voicing John. I got to find that out. But meets John for the first time, and then it becomes very, very Garfield-ish. Garfield starts eating all the food in the Italian restaurant. Very Garfield thing. And then Odie, everything looks perfect. It's a good trailer. What else am I going to say? It's a good trailer. I still don't think there was any need to make this movie, but we're talking about the trailer. Give credit where it's due. It worked. And I did not know how I'd feel about Chris Pratt's voice because I grew up with the Garfield cartoons, right? In the very monotone kind of Garfield voice that we had. They've obviously put more life into the voice here. And, you know, I didn't hate it the way I thought I would.
It might be Nicholas Hoult who does.
Does the voice of John?
It may be because,
so.
yeah, I'm looking at, like, who else could it be on this list? I mean,
That's actually pretty cool if that's Nicholas Hoult. I like Nicholas Hoult. So I will begrudgingly say, all right, you made a good trailer. I liked it. Anyway, Rob, you saw the trailer. What did you think about it?
You know, I mean, as a cat, I grew up with cats, and I thought the whole thing was, for me, it was, I wonder how this is going to turn. You know, the meet cute in the beginning was great, and I chuckled. I chuckled when he ate the pizza. You know, Elizabeth was watching it with me, and she's like, I want to see that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And maybe it'll work.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll work.
the Thanos part was really cool, too.
Yes,
Yeah.
when they mentioned Thanos saying, "I will take out half the lasagna in the universe,"
Yeah, so
and
now
you know that's
Garfield-
And Garfield
Stop
said,
it.
snap this.
Perfect
now I want lasagna. Now I'm really hungry for some lasagna. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? So the aforementioned film that we were talking about a little bit earlier, The Marvels, is of course now opened in theaters, and it has opened to a record low of $47 million in its opening weekend. Now, granted, there are movies that could get made that would pop bottles at making $47 million opening weekend, but this is not any movie. This is an MCU movie. Where prior to this weekend, the lowest opening weekends of all time was The Hulk at 55 and Ant-Man at 57. Well, this blew those away at 47. Now, you guys will
In a
remember,
way, it's winning.
for a number of weeks, I've been running down the four main points about why I've been saying, guys, this film is going to have some major struggles at the box office. And then you guys remember last week, us sitting here and bringing up all the charts in the AMC theater, showing you empty seats, like an IMAX screen on opening night at 8:30 p.m. with 8 tickets sold. And we actually did a video last week before the movie opened saying this movie's going to open way below projected. And it opened to $47 million. A movie that cost 220 to make and roughly about 100 million they spent to market it, you're talking about a movie that needs to make at bare minimum somewhere in the 450 to $500 million range just to break even. I'm going to make a wild prediction here. It ain't going to break even. This is going to be another money loser. And by the way, I'm not hating on it. I'm not hating on it. I did not love this movie, but I appreciated it. Rob and I were talking beforehand. I said, look, with all these problems that I had with the movie's barely saved for me by the chemistry of the main characters, Iman Vellani as Ms. Marvel, and some good comedy. I know comedy's been a sore point for the MCU, but there's some good comedy in this one. There is. So that was enough to save the movie for me. So I liked it, but at $47 million. Now, many of you have heard these 4 points because we've been harping on these 4 points for the last 3 months, it feels like. But I want to go over 4 main contributors about why we should not be shocked at how low the opening weekend of this movie was. Let's take a look at these. First off is the state of the MCU. And we've talked about this a million times, and we talked about it in relation to the Marvels. Every time you put out a movie in your franchise and it's awesome, you build hype for the next one. But every time you put out a chapter of your franchise and it's less than what people were hoping it would be, you lower enthusiasm. And the last 4 years, have mostly been Marvel decreasing the enthusiasm its fan base has for their movies. They've had some winners. Shang-Chi, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, they've had some winners. But in the old days, pre-2018, you'd have one underwhelming one for every 4 or 5 bangers that everybody loved. And so they would hit a road bump once in a while with a substandard movie. It was like, you know what? Doesn't matter. That was barely a speed bump for the MCU because they got so much momentum, so much positive hype, they'll be fine. And then they put out 3 more bangers in a row after that. That was fine. But we don't live in that era anymore. We live in a period of time right now where we have gone, as I've said many times, from expecting a Marvel project to be great to now we just hope it's just good. That's where we're at now. That is the reality of where we're at. We no longer go into a Marvel film expecting it to be awesome. We go in hoping it will at least be good. And even then, it doesn't live up to our hopes sometimes. And as we've progressed, the enthusiasm and the hype and the anticipation for new Marvel properties has continued to drop and drop and drop and drop and drop. That's the state of the MCU. That's where we're at right now. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was great. But if Guardians of the Galaxy 3 had come out in 2018, that movie's a $1.1 billion film. And it did great to make 800 million. Did great to make 800 million. But if that movie came out in 2018, it's a $1.1, $1.2 billion film. But the audience just isn't there anymore. I mean, obviously the audience is still there, but we do not feel that enthusiasm more. We don't feel like it's an event anymore to get out to the next Marvel thing. Number one, because they no longer over deliver like they used to. And number two, there's just so much of it now that it's just not an event watching. So that's the state of the MCU. The second thing that we've talked a lot about over the past couple of months when it comes to the Marvels is a subpar marketing campaign. They just never did anything to get us excited. And when they did, they lied. But I'm not going to go off on that whole rant again. So it was just simply, we talked about it many, many, many times on this show, that they had a pedestrian marketing campaign. And the funny thing is, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, when it comes to the villain, Dar-Ben, there was some interesting stuff you could have put in the trailer. Have her voice going, "My world is dying. My people are suffering." Like, just put a little bit of that narration in the trailer, and suddenly we might feel something for this new villain. They didn't, so they failed, and it became a very, very generic, insert comic book cliche here kind of feeling marketing campaign. And, we talked about this with Rebel Moon. The job of trailers is to get you more excited for something. None of the Marvel's trailers got us more excited. So we had the state of the MCU, we've talked about for months. We've talked about the subpar marketing for the Marvels. Also this, look, I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but there is a reason a lot of big movies have moved out of their release dates is because the actors strike and the actors couldn't go out and promote the film. Why do you think Dune moved? Dune moved because they couldn't send out their actors to promote the film. And this was the first Marvel film that they weren't able to send out the cast to go out and stump and promote the film. And we have found out over the past 4 months that is way more important to a film's overall marketing campaign than anybody ever realized. And we've seen the repercussions of some films that didn't push their release dates and suffered. Now, look, is that the difference between a $47 million opening and a $110 million opening? No, but it did have an impact. So you got the state of the MCU, the subpar marketing campaign, the cast couldn't go out to promote the film. But then there's this last one. Average fans had no idea who Monica or Kamala are. Now, somebody once in an open mic brought this up to me, Rob, and it was a point well made, but they asked, well, John, you know, when the Guardians of the Galaxy was first coming out, the first film, nobody knew the Guardians of the Galaxy, right? True enough. The difference, though, that I explained was that everybody knew that these were brand new characters. The average person sitting at home seeing that trailer knew that nobody else knew who they were either. We're all starting from scratch. I'm not behind. But in talking to a couple of friends of mine, and many of you guys wrote into me to tell me the same thing, a lot of average filmgoers who have never seen WandaVision, never saw Ms. Marvel on Disney Plus, suddenly watched these trailers and they felt like they were behind. It felt like, well, people are supposed to know who these two other characters are. I remember Captain Marvel. They did a movie about her, right? Yeah. They did one about her. Okay, yeah, but I don't know who these other two, and it feels like everybody else already knows who they are. Of course, a lot of people didn't, but they promoted this thing as the Marvels, and they promoted it as if people were supposed to know who these characters are. And I think a lot of average film fans looked at that and said, "Oh, I'm behind." One of our regular viewers, Chef Rigo.
Chef Rigo!
He goes to my gym. We both go to the UFC gym in the mornings, and I remember he even came up to me. He saw me there one morning a week or two ago, and came up and said, "Hey, okay, so should I go see the Marvels because I haven't seen Ms. Marvel? Like, am I?" And I think that is representative of a lot of people. It's like they just felt like, well, if I didn't watch that stuff, I'm going to be lost. And again, is that the difference between a $47 million opening and a $110 million opening? No. But it very well could have been the difference between a $47 million opening and a $58 million opening or $62 million opening. You start now, put that all together with the state of the MCU, subpar marketing campaign, actors not being able to go out to promote, and having trailers that are featuring characters that a lot of average film fans have no idea who they are because they don't have Disney Plus or never watch those shows. We have been saying, Rob, for months that this is a recipe for potential disaster. And the financial disaster, and listen, we're acknowledging this is just the opening weekend. I mean, the opening weekend for the Elemental was disastrous too, and that turned out to be just fine.
Yeah, it played. Legs.
Maybe that happens with the Marvels. I doubt it, but I'm not going to take away there's a possibility there. It only had its first opening weekend, whatever. But Rob, if they had done any of this right, if they had had a strong MCU going into this movie, if they had had a strong marketing campaign, if they had done more or marketed this film differently so people didn't feel like they needed to know who these other characters are going into it, if they could have had the actors and the stars going out and promoting it, I don't think we're looking at Captain Marvel opening numbers, but I think we're looking at better opening numbers. At any rate, Rob, we saw this is now the lowest opening MCU film they've ever made.
Yeah.
What's your take on that and some of the circumstances I talked about?
Well, first of all, Guardians of the Galaxy is a different. When you watch that trailer, even though you don't know, and John, we don't know who the characters are in any movie. The movie tells us the story and introduces those characters to us. But the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer was really funny. And it was really interesting. They're a bunch of a-holes. And, you had Star-Lord.
The whole crank of the middle finger.
And you're
iconic.
looking at Rocket and all that stuff. So immediately, it doesn't matter if you know these characters or not. That trailer sets a tone.
Yeah.
That's snarky and somewhat adult.
Even the posters were like, Marvel presents the Guardians of the Galaxy, you're welcome.
Right.
We're just like, who?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and there was a tone of it in there that was really fun that I think people want to see.
And
now
they use the trailers to also introduce us to those characters, right?
100%. I think the real problem with this movie is they're showing these three characters, these three heroes, and Monica Rambeau, by the way, is my Captain Marvel. Growing up reading Avengers comics in the 80s, she was Captain Marvel, and I always loved her. But anyway, that said, when you're watching this, I'm like, why am I supposed to care about the story that's being told? According to the trailers, the big problem in the script is that these three characters are switching powers, and it's like, it's kind of slapsticky. And I didn't really want that from Captain Marvel. I wanted, as I was telling you, I wanted to see the Winter Soldier or the Empire Strikes Back of Captain Marvel's story. And I feel that the story itself that they chose to focus on was not the story that people who enjoy the MCU wanted to see. And I think they could have given us, give Captain Marvel some gravitas and she needed to be defined in this movie. And it felt like she was playing second fiddle to everybody else. And I thought that was an odd choice. That said, the best thing about the movie was the chemistry between the three of them.
I agree.
And I thought that was a lot of fun. But then give them something that together, give them something that would define the three of them, something that was both personal and, of course, dire. And we could have really invested in it. But as myself, we're now past the 30 mark of MCU movies. Every MCU movie, you got to step up your game. It doesn't necessarily have to be apocalyptic, but it has to be a story that your longtime, well-deserved audience deserves. And I feel like we're not seeing that anymore. You've got to give us post-Endgame stories that mean something.
By the way, I want to address something here quick before I get. One of our live viewers, Neo Swift, is saying, you're wrong. People hadn't seen the movie yet. So who are you referring to when you say that the fans wanted a different story? I think, good catch on there, Jonathan. I think, though, Neo, what Rob is saying and what I'm saying is that the trailers told us that this movie is about these three heroes who switch places when they use powers. And that's not even really what the movie's about, but they told us that was the movie was about, and it was about Thanos. That's what they told us. So when we're saying that it wasn't the movie that I think a lot of people were looking for, again, that's a failure of the marketing. We're not saying that wasn't the movie they were looking for that they watched, but they presented a movie that probably didn't look interesting.
You're exactly right. And also, John, I love building the team. Having characters come together and learning to work together. I've always loved that. I think that's a trope in storytelling that done well can really, really work. And putting these three women together in a story, that idea is appealing to me. I'm like, I'll watch that, but now give me a great story that's worthy. I felt, like you said, the villain wasn't that compelling. They didn't do enough of a job of developing her story. You had a great fix on that when we were talking about that before the show. And we're talking about a series of movies that have given us Winter Soldier, that have given us No Way Home, where you have three Spider-Men having to team up. There's been these films have been so satisfying, and this film felt like an afterthought.
Right?
I just want to say that I enjoyed the Marvels, but you guys are right with your points. I don't know. But how much did you say the budget was?
$220 million.
Okay, well, I'm moving on to the next, and the next is Godzilla -1. Guess how much that budget is?
$300 million.
$15 million.
No.
Can't be.
So if that movie looks like that for $15 million, Marvel, you need to start restructuring your stuff so you can keep the costs down a little bit.
Well, interestingly, too, I'm looking at just Box Office Mojo. So the opening for this falls between Shazam 2 on the low end and The Flash on the high end. And this is in the middle of those two. So we're in DCEU openings now.
Yeah. That's where we've come to.
Quantum Mania opened to 106 million. So
yep. Guardians of the Galaxy opened to 18 or something like that. Again, it was the third final Guardians of the Galaxy. I get that. I understand all that. But yeah, it's just, there was a lot of stuff here that a lot of mistakes were made in the build up to this movie. And again, I'm not hating on the movie. In general, in a thumbs up or thumbs down movie, I appreciated this movie. I even liked it a little bit more the second time I saw it.
Do you think this movie is the point where people could point out this is the movie that lost everybody or something. Do you
I
think this is the movie, or was there a movie before where you saw this?
I think Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was where we started hearing some people going, okay, I might be done this now. But Secret Invasion, I think that happened a little bit with She-Hulk. I think it happened a little bit with Secret Invasion. And I think, I think this movie is better than She-Hulk, better than Secret Invasion, better than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But it's still down on the lower rung of the overall MCU films.
But didn't Guardians come out after Ant-Man?
Guardians came out after Ant-Man.
Yeah, so they're like playing a little tug of war game with.
Yeah, and that's what's been going on for the last 3.5 years. Is like they'll put a couple of crappy things, then something will come out and remind us, hey, remember the MCU can be really good. And then a couple of more subpar things.
Someone in the chat, like at the beginning of the show, was saying like, they mentioned like a movie, the MCU's dead, and then something else comes out, the MCU's back, and then something else comes out, the MCU's dead, and it's like that really was doing that.
Just bring Shang-Chi back, man. Just
Luckily,
bring him back already.
I mean, they do have the banger of all bangers coming out next.
Their next
Downtown,
film, their next film is the only MCU film coming out now in 2024. There's only one MCU film coming out in 2024.
Downpool.
Downpool.
Deadpool.
Downpool.
Downtown pool.
Deadpool 3 is coming, which I am now, one of our viewers sent us in, and I now believe it should be called Deadpool Threesome.
Deadpool 3 what?
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what?
Threesome.
I don't think that's out of
pay
the
that
realm of
man.
possibility.
Or woman,
But
whoever
who's
said
the
it.
third? It's not Taylor Swift. So who's the third?
I mean, that would be
third
$3 billion, baby. If it was.
My goodness. Anyway, guys.
My goodness.
I think it's safe to say, I don't think anybody thinks that Deadpool 3 is in any danger of breaking the Marvel's record for the lowest opening weekend. I mean, I still think Deadpool 3 is going to be $1 billion film. I'm going to call it right. I think Deadpool 3 is going to be
if it's
$1 billion.
great.
Well, now they can focus this entire like lead up to
Even if
one
it's
film.
not great, I think it's going to make $700 million.
I'm looking forward to whatever Deadpool 3 is called, if only for the marketing campaign.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I mean, I don't know what it's going to be, but I just know it's going to be wildly. I mean, I hope Disney doesn't tamp it down. I hope they're allowed to do what they did for Deadpool 1 and 2, because, man, that's going to be fun to watch.
By the way, for those of you who maybe weren't watching, you notice we got a new little thing here on the show. For those of you watching live, Jonathan's able to bring up some instances. Bring up one. There we go. Mark Cavani says,
brilliant.
that's brilliant. I'd say phase 2 was so too, but it just didn't feel as long as one was busy with the Disney Plus stuff. I mean, the Disney Plus stuff has been anyway, very much a mixed bag. Anyway, so good job to Jonathan bringing those up. All right, guys, with all that down, we are now going to move over and start taking your questions that you guys have been sending in. But before we do, we're going to take another quick moment here and thank another sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, my mobile service provider, and they should be yours, Mint Mobile. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. Signing your life away to a big wireless provider is kind of like being trapped on a roller coaster from hell. Sure, it looks like fun at first. They probably even threw in a free phone, but now you can't get off. Month after month of insane bills and unexpected thrills, like overages and surprise fees. If that sounds like your current big wireless plan, it's time to get off the ride with Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You guys know before I came to Mint Mobile, I was paying triple what I am paying now on the standard big wireless plan, and I will never go back. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped right to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile, speaking of Deadpool 3, for sponsoring the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's get over to your questions here, shall we? Let's start off with the live questions. Jonathan, what we got up here first?
Raymond says, you mentioned you used to break dance,
Yep.
and we both come from the era of the moonwalk. TikTok kids are now showing off the slick back. Tried it?
I don't know what slick back is. All I know is that I was better than any of them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
You still are.
I don't know if I am anymore.
Right before the show starts.
True
Didn't we
story.
pick photos?
True story. I mean, it's one of the most crazy things you'll ever. I was a professional breakdancer. I was Pisces of the Zodiac crew. And we literally got paid to go and perform gigs. It was
One day your mom's gonna find that tape.
my big. Oh, I know where the tape is. I know where the tapes
come
are.
on, dude. That would-
But my
that-
big thing. One of the guys in our crew, his name was Justin Brownlee. He was a lighter guy. So one of our big thing moves was I would stand, get him on top of my head, and I would spin, and then I would stop, and he would continue spinning. So I'm doing the helicopter
That's
on
like,
top of my head. That
Las
was
Vegas show right there.
It was a bit of a Vegas show. Yep. All right. What's next?
Talkie75 says, Odin, you are both destined to become kings.
Yeah, of course. Odin was referring to the fact that Loki was the son of Laufey. He is the actual thing, which, people trying to argue with me about, starting to say, well, she as an Asgardian. Loki is not Asgardian. He was adopted to live on Asgard, but he is a frost giant with some trickery. But yes, very, very foretelling when he says you were both destined to be kings, because Loki was born on his world destined to become king. All right, what's next?
The Werebear writes, Hulk is my favorite superhero, and the MCU has destroyed him, in my opinion. I find it interesting that Cap 4 has the leader, Thunderbolt Ross, and Betty Ross. Why is Hulk not in the film, even as a supporting character? Am I crazy thinking this?
Okay, first of all, thank you you send in a $20
yeah.
super chat. So thank you so much for supporting us on that level. Secondly, what does Hulk have to do with that story? I mean, there's no reason for Hulk to be in that story. Now, look, I am with you. I think they have ruined Hulk. Hulk, I remember when Hulk showed up in the Battle of New York in the first Avengers movie, and Bruce says, "That's the thing. I'm always angry." And he turns around in one motion, transforms into Hulk, and gives that overhand down looping punch and takes out the space worm in one shot. I'm like, this is the Hulk I've been waiting my whole life to see. And then he's jumping from building to building, just trashing everybody. When him and Thor finish wiping the floor people, and he just boom and punches Thor out of screen. When he grabs Loki, he's like puny god and like all that kind of stuff. It's like, this is the Hulk I have been waiting my whole life to see. Being reduced to Hawaiian shirt wearing family picnic Hulk that we got at the end of She-Hulk. They've ruined Hulk. I mean, not that Hulk hasn't had his moments and Banner hasn't had his moments. Absolutely, he has. But yeah, I miss Hulk, man. I want Hulk.
He's a friend from work.
He's a friend from work. Ah, and then they battle and yeah. All right. What's next?
Ian McAllister says, I can't believe Hogwarts Legacy wasn't even nominated for anything. Talk about a snub. Were there Game Awards?
What, did the Video Game Award nominations come out?
They must have.
Yeah.
Because I know the Video Game Awards are happening on December 7th. Ann and I are actually thinking about maybe buying tickets and going to the event.
Why are they even giving out? There's one game, and you know what that game is. It's going to win every award.
It should be
Starfield.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Starfield. Oh.
But I think there's a bunch of, I think Spider-Man 2 is going to win a bunch
Spider-Man
of
2.
awards.
For sure.
I think, what was the one you just mentioned, Ray?
Oh, no.
I think
I said Starfield. Yeah.
He said Harry Potter. He was talking about
Yeah,
the
and
Harry
Legacy.
Potter game.
Yeah, but that's really weird because that game sold like gangbusters.
So the
and
nominees
it's a
did
terrific
come out.
game. The nominees did come out?
And you can vote or start voting right now for it.
Okay, just tell me if Baldur's Gate 3 was nominated for best game.
Yeah.
Okay, damn well better.
Yeah. And
So
Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man
Yeah, it's
2.
in there.
Super Mario Brothers 1.
But let's be honest, and this isn't even joking, not even
the Zelda
hyperbole.
one?
Legend of Zelda
Tears of the
15.
Kingdom.
If the Video Game Awards are 2 hours long, I don't know what they are. Literally an hour and 47 minutes are just commercials. Like,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That's not even hyperbole. I'm not even joking. Like it's just really the commercial show. But I'm not gonna lie, I get a kick out of seeing some of the previews.
And they do drop some trailers too. Some
Oh, no, that's what I mean. But the
Yeah.
trailers are commercials.
Yeah,
That's what they are, right? So, all right, what's next?
Ian McAllister writes also, how long do series of a similar scale and scope of the perspective God of War show usually take to get made? When do you predict we may get a casting?
I don't think I've ever heard them talk about what their timeline is for. Like, I don't even know what year it's supposed to come out.
I don't know either.
So until we know that, like if it was supposed to come out Christmas 2024, well, I'd say we'd be getting casting pretty soon. If they say it's coming out Christmas 2025, I'd say maybe in a few months we'll get some casting. So I until I know the timeline, it's really hard to say. I am very excited to see what they do with that, though. Like really excited. All right, what's next?
Okay, Ian McAllister's back again with a $20 super chat.
Thank you, Ian.
I like the Marvels, and I may see it again. I can't say that about a MCU film since Spider-Man No Way Home, and I think Deadpool 3 is a banger, and it's the only MCU film out next year. It will reignite and cleanse the palate for the MCU.
You know, we were talking before the show started here in the studio that with the fact that they moved Captain America 4 into 2025 and that they moved Thunderbolts out into 2025, that left Deadpool 3 as the only MCU movie coming out for the entirety of 2024. And maybe that'll be a good thing. Because, you know, one of the things I complained about earlier was the fact that there's so much Marvel product now, it just doesn't feel like an event anymore. Maybe this will help that. Because I think Deadpool 3 is now coming out in July, right?
Right.
So it's now November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. It's literally going to be 8 months till we get another Marvel film in theaters. And then another 7 or 8 months after that till we get the next one. Maybe that will help reestablish the feeling of an event. I don't know, Rob. Do you think
I would
being
hope so.
optimistic?
I mean, look, the thing is, they do have an event. Deadpool 3 with Wolverine and
Is an
Deadpool,
event.
even though it's a Fox, you know, it's all a Fox remnant. I don't think there's anybody who enjoys comic book movies that isn't going to want to go into that film with a huge smile on their face. I think the world is going to want to show up for it. I think anything that the MCU has nothing to do with Deadpool and Wolverine. I think that's an entirely unique thing, and they're really lucky they have it. Because if ever they needed a Hail Mary or a 99-yard touchdown pass, Deadpool 3 is going to deliver that.
Question, because that's just motion pictures. There's still going to be some Disney Plus TV.
Yeah.
Echo. Trailer was great. Are you
Trailer-
expecting it to be good or not?
Well, look, I go into everything wanting it to be good.
Yeah, we want it to be good.
And
sure.
after seeing that trailer, I will say this, John, it surprised me. The trailer made me want to see it. Now, is it going to be good? Well, that remains to be seen. I will say this. That trailer made me interested. I'm tuning in.
I'm 100% with you. I still don't know that I have a lot of belief in it, but the trailer was great.
Yeah, it was
and
great.
I wasn't interested
Trailer
before,
was
but I
great.
am now. All right, what's next?
Guzman writes, Brie is allergic to cats, so she was risking her life to bring us the Marvels. Box office should have been double for that and the white tank top scenes.
Every time, I can say this about my wife, Ann, because my wife Ann is a massive gym nut, like gym fitness nut. But every time they were on the ship and Brie Larson had her Captain Marvel costume pulled down, she just had the white tank top. Ann was just like, she's in such crazy good shape. Like, she was really showing off her form there because she looked great. And I'm not saying she's sexy. Well, she is sexy. I'm just saying physically she looked great. She looked really, really good. All right, what's next?
All right, we got AL who writes, correction on the last episode. Coyote versus Acme was meant to go to theaters. It was going to release on the day Barbie ended up getting released.
All I'm saying is that Variety specifically quoted that it was originally intended to go to, that it was destined to go to Max.
Yeah, and then they decided they might have changed it.
Okay, so yeah, there's that. All right, what's next?
Film 101 says the reason Captain Marvel did so well is because it came out 1 month before the biggest film with Endgame. Otherwise, not many cared for her character.
This brain dead thing again. All right, let me take you to school. There's this fucking bullshit Mandela effect myth going around out there. Well, because there are some people, listen, there are a lot of movies I don't like. I don't like Ant-Man and the Lost Quantumania. But there are people who like it. And that's great. And I celebrate that other people liked it and wanted to see it, all that kind of stuff. There's this constant bullshit thing that people have just accepted because it's been parroted so many times. But the only reason Captain Marvel made $1 billion because it was in between the two Avengers films. Anything would have made $1 billion if it's in between the... Ant-Man 2 was in between the two Avengers films. Did you know that? Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ant-Man 2, came out in between Infinity War and Endgame. Did that movie make $1 billion? No? Then get that shit out of here. Get that ridiculous nonsense excuse. Like, I get it, guys. You didn't like the movie, so you try to come up for an excuse why other people did or why it was so successful. But this bullshit of, because it came out in between the two Avengers. There was another Marvel film that came out between the two Avengers films, and it didn't do all that great. So there goes that logic.
I'd also like to throw out, John, I always said Captain Marvel was going to do good because it was catering to an audience. You had a movie that mothers and daughters could go see together.
Yeah.
And that brought out the female audience. I mean, the movie did not make $1 billion. Doctor Strange didn't make $1 billion. You know, it made money because it brought out an audience that doesn't traditionally show up, which was moms.
Also,
Yeah.
it was pretty well marketed that it took place in the 90s.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
wasn't like people were like, this is a direct connection between the two films. It's like,
Right.
it's going back decades.
Much better, like a very good marketing campaign for it, the whole bit. Now, listen, I think Captain Marvel is at best, like the original movie, was at best a mid-tier MCU installment. I mean, it was all right. It was good. I liked it. It was fine, but it wasn't anything special. But like you pointed out, Rob, there was a lot there that was going to bring a lot of audiences out, and it had nothing to do with the fact that it was in between two events. You come up with something else. All right, what's next?
Buck's Basement writes, the Coyote versus Acme news being shopped around. Is clear that Zaslav received some phone calls and from Cena and Gunn.
Well, no, he didn't get any phone calls from Cena and Gunn, but listen, they're a business. They want to make money. They figured where they're at right now, they didn't figure that the money it was going to cost them to put it in theaters and market it would be recaptured. They didn't think they could get that money back. So, but they want to make money, so absolutely shop it around.
I have a theory, John, about
I'd
this.
love to hear it.
I think the people that are in charge at Warner Brothers, I think David Zaslav said, Coyote versus Acme is what? But anybody that grew up with Looney Tunes or even the Animaniacs or whatever, we know exactly what that means. And I said on a show yesterday, I bet you could come up with a great poster for Coyote versus Acme that would make you want to see this by the time I end this show. I'll have to get the poster, but somebody did just that. And I'm like, any person who grew up in the last 50 years who watched Looney Tunes knows exactly what that means. And I think at the studio, they run their analytics, they do whatever. There's nothing, unless you understand what the Looney Tunes are, which all of us do, you don't know what that even means. And David Zaslav's probably thinking to himself, I still don't know what it means.
Well, it is important to point out, David Zaslav had nothing to do with that decision. Warner, much like James Gunn and Peter Safran are now the heads of DC, there was a brand new head of Warner Animation came in, and it was that dude who made the decision that he wanted to pull it because he wanted to focus exclusively on cinematic fare, and they didn't believe it could have any success in the theaters.
I think that's silly.
Well, they're going to make some money now if they shop it out.
Yeah.
They'll make money on it.
I hope they sell it to a different studio, they release it and make $1 billion.
But you know that's not going to happen.
I know.
And here's the thing. If that does happen, if they shop it out and somebody else picks it up and it comes out and makes $80 million at the box office, are they then justified? Are they validated?
Well, because they said they were going to get a $35 million write-down or write-off.
Yeah, so
for the
that's
film.
right there. They're getting $35 million.
I mean, they're $50 billion in debt. Maybe I would roll the dice on something that's already finished, put it out, put your best foot forward. What if it became a hit like a Barbie did? It's not going to be like Barbie, but what if you have a whole group, generations of people that could go
but
see
let's
that.
not pretend like Looney Tunes stuff has been super successful the last couple of years.
Well, even Space Jam 2 almost made $200 million.
But that was below what people thought that movie could possibly
When you started
do,
that
right?
sentence, I didn't think it was
that's
going to
not
end
a
with
good
200 million.
argument to make. You're not wrong. I'm just saying that's probably
But
not
that
the
movie
strongest
wasn't
argument.
good.
So I don't know.
You watched it?
I did.
Did you see it? All right.
Rob's arguing with himself.
All right. What's next?
Kenneth Estrella writes, I really thought The Marvels was awesome.
Hey, listen, you're not alone, Kenneth. I did my open
like
spoiler
Quantumania.
discussion yesterday, and we heard from a lot of people that liked it much better than I did. And listen, Rob and I talk about this all the time. The difference between a real movie fan and people with agendas is that if there's a movie you as a real movie fan don't like, you still hope other people have a good time watching it.
Yeah.
So when I watch Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and I really dislike it, I hope other people had a good time watching it, and I'll cheer that they do. And if you liked the Marvels more than I did, that's awesome. I love that you did. I'm actually jealous because I didn't get to have as positive an experience as you did. So I'm glad that you did. I don't share your sentiment to that degree, but I'm glad that you did, man. All right, what's next?
We got Craig Berkey, who writes, in my opinion, MCU needs to balance interconnectivity with being accessible. If people feel left behind, they will stop watching. The Marvels is my number 10 MCU movie.
You're not wrong. And I think just the marketing itself made people feel left behind. they're watching this trailer and they're seeing these two characters, and it's like, oh, everybody else knows who they are. I'm behind. You never feel like you're behind when you're watching a trailer for Shang-Chi because you know it's brand new. Nobody's seen it. You don't feel behind when you're watching a trailer for this, that, or the other thing. But people went into this and looked and said they just feel behind. And one of the things that goes with the interconnectivity is, and we talked about this much, at least this movie gave us more Kamala Khan, right? So they introduced a new character, and they not long after followed it up by putting her on screen again. And she's kind of becoming, I don't care what anybody else says, I think she's kind of becoming the heart and soul of the MCU a little bit. But like Ray brought up Shang-Chi earlier. Shang-Chi came out years ago. That movie's fantastic. Where the hell has he been?
Yeah,
and that's been the modus operandi of Marvel lately. They've spent the last 3.5 years, new character, and giving depth to none of them.
Yeah.
Not establishing them after the first introduction.
That speaks to your thought on the Marvels and making a Captain Marvel 2 where you developed the character more. Yeah.
Think about this. Miss Marvel came out after Shang-Chi. And Miss Marvel has a TV series and a movie now.
Yep.
She's balling.
And they've already teased what she's going to do next.
Ooh.
So they gave us her own series, like all since Shang-Chi came out, gave us her own series, now her own movie. Well, not her own, but her movie. And they've set up what's coming with her next, right? Meanwhile, we're just like, oh yeah, did that Shang-Chi movie happen?
He's suffering from the interconnectivity thing, I think.
Or lack thereof.
Oh yeah, trying to find that right spot, but you're letting this character, who a lot of us enjoyed seeing. I want to see some more kung fu, some Marvel kung fu. You know what I mean? Like I want to see that again on screen. It's a great change of pace.
They haven't even announced it, so it's
we don't even know when they might
it's at least 2 years away, which means that there's never been a character introduced where there's 4 years between their movies in the 15 years that the MCU has existed. I mean, if they had multiple films, you know, in phase 1, 2, and 3, was there one movie that just was a one-off?
Yeah. All right, what's next?
Ian McAllister writes, how many times has Song been hacked? Who is to say they won't get hacked and have scans of actors stolen?
Oh, Sony. Well, no, but that's irrelevant because,
yeah.
like, if somebody hacked in and took the scan, guess what? You don't need the actor to scan them. You can just take a picture of them and get a scan. But if you tried to then use that scan, you'd be sued, right? Because you have to get the individual's permission. So it's not about the existence of the scans. That's not the hard thing. It's the using the digital imagery of another actor without permission.
It's not like the actor's gonna. Yeah, it's not like the actor's gonna be like, "Did I do that part?"
It's not like Paramount's gonna come out with, or some Canadian film studio is gonna come out with a movie that looks like it's starring Anthony Hopkins, and then the judges, they're gonna say to the judge, well, you know, Judge, we stole it fair and square from Sony's servers, and they're just going, oh, well, if you stole it, then that's okay. You're fine. All right, what's next?
Finders keepers.
Finders keepers, law of the land.
Armani Jones writes, last week I asked if you watched Jean Dubarry and you hadn't heard of it. It's starring the main actor of Pirates of the Caribbean. His name is banned in Super Chats for some reason. Oh, it's weird.
Oh, like a new Johnny Depp film?
Yeah.
No, I still haven't heard of it. I know there was I think a French film or something like that he was going to
that's what
get
it
a
is.
role in or something like that. But yeah, honestly, I don't know anything about the film. All right, what's next?
In my honest opinion reviews writes, it's such a shame because the Marvels is actually pretty good and that ad campaign was one of the worst I've ever seen.
Look, I'm not going to say it's one of the worst I've ever seen. Like, it's not John Carter bad.
What? John Carter rules.
No,
the ad
marketing.
campaign.
Oh.
Yeah, the ad campaign.
Sorry.
No, I love John Carter. I love that movie.
But you're right. The worst ad campaign ever. I thank you. Thank you.
Terrible.
Okay, I misunderstood.
The problem with the Marvels, it was pedestrian.
Yeah.
It did nothing. It didn't do anything to turn me off the movie, but it did nothing to get me more
I
excited.
mean, you and I talked about this over the months. It was only the third trailer that made me at least remember when we talked about when they dropped you.
Yep.
Like they finally showed us something of a movie we might want to even see.
Yeah, this might tell us something. Oh, turns out it was a lie. Okay. All right, what's
I
next?
think Rob needs to go to Pound Town.
Jeez.
Bendu Windu writes, we need a Kevin Feige State of Marvel address.
You know what? We really kind of do.
Yeah.
We're not entitled to one, but I would love if, I was at that event when they went down to the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood and they had the big announcement event for phase 3. I really would love it if Kevin Feige did something similar, had, filled out that theater, live streamed it, and just had a state of the MCU. Because it was now about a year or more ago where Kevin Feige said, yeah, I understand it doesn't look like things are connected, but believe me, you're going to see any minute now, you're going to see how everything's connected.
Yeah.
Well, here we still are. I really think, because you know what, getting Kevin Feige on a stage, he's a great communicator on stage. He's I was going to say Tim Cook, if you will, of the Marvel world. Get up on stage, because I think that would do a couple of things. One, I think it would assure much of the fan base, and I think it would invigorate the fan base. I think Kevin Feige is that big of a person. Like, most people don't care about movie executives, but he's one that could get on a stage and invigorate the fan base, like, talking about his vision for what's upcoming. And I think that would be very helpful for them right now.
I mean, John, I think you're absolutely right, but you think about what Captain or the Marvels did at the box office, and remember, they only get half of that. And if you think a Marvel movie, they take home what, $22 million, $23 million this weekend on a $220 million investment.
Well, they take back nothing until the production costs and the advertising costs.
That's what I mean. But that's all.
They get they lose 1/3 back to the theaters.
They're a long way from.
Like I said, minimum, this movie needs to make, and this is, if I'm being optimistic, 450 to 500 million they need to break even. And they're not going to get there. Not with a $47 million opening.
I think foreign totally made like 130. Was it 130?
110. Oh. I think they were projecting 130 to 140. I think it came in at 110. Yep. All right. What's next?
Shamrock Vibes writes, do you still agree with Seagore, or more or less tweeted who more or less tweeted that the many of Marvel movies is too female centric and is why the Marvel's box office is low? I disagree, because the next movies are all male led.
No, not in the least. I mean, the first Captain Marvel made over $1 billion. Wonder Woman made over 700 million. Was at the time the biggest financial success DC had ever had. In the midst of a pandemic and being released day and date on a streaming service, Black Widow made $80 million on its opening weekend. No, I do not agree. I think you can't actually back that up with data. I don't believe it.
He was saying, actually, I saw the tweet. It was more along the lines of business. He was talking about box office returns and things and leaning in. I mean, a lot of people made points that the Disney brand from the 1930s has been female-centric and has given us some of the greatest. Cinderella, the animated film, Snow White. You look at
Beauty and the Beast.
The Little Mermaid brought back Disney animation from the brink of death. Female-centric characters. That's their brand. And they've told some of the greatest stories about female protagonists in the fantasy realm ever. But those stories, I think, were true to themselves, true to their inception. And what I think we're seeing now, which is interesting, in they want to do the same thing they did with their animated movies with their franchise properties, which I think is something that is doable and desirable. Why not superhero movies and Star Wars, superhero more, but the comic book genre for superheroes skewed more male than it does female. So why not seek out a female audience? There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the female audience deserves great stories the same way that The Little Mermaid is a great story. Beauty and the Beast, great story. Snow White, Cinderella, these are classic. Look at how you and we loved Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella.
Love that movie.
It was great.
Love it.
Did we sit there? Did I ever say to you, John, I'm not going to go see it because it's got a chick in it? It was a great movie, well told. And it doesn't matter whether a protagonist is male or female. Give me a great character and give me a great story, and I'll show up.
And listen, we've seen other male-led MCU films in a free fall, right? Like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania couldn't crack $500 million. That's unheard of. Couldn't crack $500 million. That's the direction the box office is going. Flash, of course, was a massive underperformer. Shazam was a massive underperformer. Black Adam was a massive underperformer. you can't pick and choose where to apply a particular paradigm and say, well, this must be it here if it doesn't apply elsewhere too. I mean, we went through a big laundry list of problems and issues that they had. I don't believe that's one of them.
You know, when I was a kid, I used to go to see all the Disney live action movies. And one of my favorites to this day was Candle Shoe. And it starred a young Jodie Foster. Now, I didn't think to myself, well, I'm not going to go see that movie because the girl's in it.
All right, what's next?
We got Connor Lauren Wagner writes, Wind River has a sequel coming, good or bad?
Oh, that's right. I heard something about that. Listen, the world that Taylor Sheridan created with Wind River was dark and emotional and riveting. I would go back. I don't know where they're going to go with it, but I loved Wind River. That should have gotten more Oscar attention. I'll be honest. Wind River should have gotten more Oscar attention.
And they were great in it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to see it.
Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch, man.
I mean, I'd love to see them come back.
Well, obviously they can't. Well, I'm not going to give me, for those of you who haven't seen it. Anyway, all right, what's next?
Let's do it.
Chris James gives some support. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris James.
Bright writes, I tried to warn everyone, man. The Thanos dialogue in the trailer was cut up past lines. Even my girl thought Thanos would be in it from the trailer.
Oh, no, I don't think many of us didn't think that was probably a piece of unused dialogue from another movie.
I figured it was
like,
from the past,
absolutely. I didn't think we were going to see live Thanos. I thought at best we'd see some kind of flashback between Dar-Ben and him, like him handing her something or imparting his philosophy on her or whatever. But I think a lot of people assumed it was probably unused footage. But the very fact that they dug in, got unused footage from unused dialogue from other movies, they purposefully, with intent and premeditatedly crafted together an ad campaign to make the audience believe that Thanos or Thanos's work was a key part of this movie.
I mean, Captain Marvel's line was very direct.
Oh yeah, it's like we destroyed Thanos, but it's not over.
Thanos has returned somehow.
What's the message? Yeah, somehow Thanos has returned.
Yeah.
That's the message. And I'm not. Listen, I could get real angry again, but I'm.
Well, it's almost like they did that to goose the opening box office numbers.
But it's almost
Of
that
course.
is.
Oh, yeah,
Like
it was
on
all-
purpose.
It was
That's what it was.
desperation.
And that's exactly what they did.
Pathetic desperation. All right, what's next?
Suthius writes, thank you for the spoiler talk. Next up, Aquaman 2.
I'll probably do. It's been a while since I did an open spoiler discussion. Yes, it was pretty fun doing one yesterday. But yes, next up I think is probably Aquaman 2. Which, listen, I know all the things we've been hearing about it, but you know what? It's still Jason Momoa. It's still James Wan. I'm still going to go in with a smile on my face, looking forward to watching this movie.
It's wild, John. We're about a month away. A little more than a month away. Can you believe it?
Okay, but
P. Willie's in that.
who?
P. Willie?
Who's
Patrick Wilson?
P. Willie?
Hey, P. Willie.
That's the reason why I'm watching. I love
Willie.
Patrick Wilson.
Like
man.
the most
I love this
tough
actor.
name I've ever heard. P. Willie.
I love this second role actor, Patrick Wilson. He's
Who shall
great.
henceforth be known?
P. Willie's baby.
P. Willie.
P. Willie. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. I'm given a 30% chance, 30%, not 70, 30, that this movie gets bumped again out of December.
Have you heard something?
I have not.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if in the next week or two they announce Aquaman 2 now coming June of 2024, just remember you heard it here first. All right, what's next?
Tim Platt writes, remember the criticism that was levied at WB about being reactionary about the DCEU? Seems the Marvel has fallen into that trap. Focus on quality content. Things will fix itself eventually.
Well, no, listen, there's a difference between like saying taking inventory and like Marvel's been running for 15 years. The MCU's been running for about 15 years. For them, if they were to now take a pause and say, we're going to course correct something that we're doing now, course correction is one thing. What used to drive us crazy under the old ownership at Warner Brothers is that like one DCU movie would come out, and if there was something successful, ooh, that worked. The people like that. Change what we're going to be doing next to be more like that. Or if a movie came out and something failed, they go, oh, nobody likes what we just did. Change everything that we're supposed to be doing moving forward. Right. And they did that again and again and again and again, which made all of us very frustrated. To after 15 years saying, hey, we're well into this new phase and it's not really connecting with people the way we want it to. Let's step back, reassess, and maybe alter direction. that's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. But it's like, to use a sports analogy, go into halftime and make an adjustment to your game plan, or after every single play, changing your game plan. That's the difference, I think. All right, what's next?
No More writes, it's safe to say the Marvels will not make it to $500 million. Is this the first time a sequel to a $1 billion movie makes only a fraction of the first?
That's a very interesting question. It might be. I mean, I don't have the list of the 47 films that have made $1 billion, and then out of those 47,
sequels.
How many of them got sequels, and then what was the sequel? I don't know, but that's a very good question. That could be a real unenviable place in the record.
Or
books.
even on a percentage basis, if a movie had a successful first outing and then a bad
percentage drop.
Well, I mean, that happens a lot, right? Like we've seen many big films have sequels that don't do nearly as
Highlander
well.
2.
But but a $1 billion film that the next one didn't even make 500.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
That would be an interesting thing to look into. All right, what's next?
Isaiah Jones writes, I'm amazed that Mobius's advice to Loki. I'm amazed by the Mobius advice to Loki in episode 6.
It was a great scene. Just basically talking about you just got to make the hard decision. You know, what's the bigger picture decision? I thought it was a great scene. All right, what's next?
Hosea XCI writes, how about Pereira and Aspinall, great UFC card?
Tell you what, Aspinall's a bad man. A lot of people, his rise has been fairly quick, so a lot of people are still sleeping on him a little bit. But yeah, it's going to be Jones and him next, I think, if Jones accepts the fight, and I'm not sure that he will. All right, what's next?
Suthius writes, we'll see a Thor variant of Hiddleston one day. It'll be a complete Ouroboros for him from his first time auditioning for actual Thor. Oh, so Hiddleston is actually playing Thor?
I mean, yeah, a lot of people may not realize this, but the way they got Tom Hiddleston was because he came in to audition for Thor. He was one of the finalists to get the Thor role, and they just liked him so much that they knew they were going to go with this Chris Hemsworth kid, but they were like, how would you like to play Loki? And today it's so hard for me to imagine Tom Hiddleston playing Thor, but it's impossible for me right now to imagine somebody else other than Tom Hiddleston playing Loki. Like how different movies could have been today. But yeah, it would be fun to see a variant of him being Thor.
I can't believe he started at 29.
Yeah.
And now he's 40 something.
It's crazy. All right, what's next?
Harry Katsaros writes, farewell, Doom Patrol, you beautiful twisted monster. What an incredible ending to the most underrated and underappreciated comic book property in history. It's a shame where people didn't watch the show. I
still have not watched the final season. I haven't had a chance to watch the final season
Me
yet.
either.
Cannot wait. I have deeply, deeply loved this show. I mean, it's funny because for a couple of years, I remember we talked about this a few years ago. We were in a place where we had The Boys, we had Doom Patrol, and
Umbrella Academy.
And Umbrella Academy.
I think those two overshadowed it.
They did, because one was on Netflix, but I remember for a stretch there, Rob, we had DC and Marvel television out there, but the three best superhero things on television, none of them were Marvel or DC. Well, Doom Patrol was DC, but not really.
It's like adjacent.
I mean, it was it was DC adjacent, if anything, but those are the three best superhero things on television. And yeah.
Breaking news.
What's that?
Monarch starts this week. Just wanted to.
Oh yeah, that's not breaking.
Eric Blake pointed that out. I completely forgot. Something excited to look forward to because we don't have Loki or Gen V anymore.
What? Wait, is it open this week?
November 17th, Monarch.
I have it right here, 17th for exact date.
Right, Rob?
I can't
So
wait.
Friday comes out?
Yeah.
Trailers have been, but we have heard, like the trailers make it look like it's a whole bunch of battle royale giant monster action. We've heard from the early reactions, the first bunch of episodes are not that. They're all saying it's really good, but it's the story more than giant monster action, which makes me think that's we're going to get more of that in the second half of the season.
And Godzilla -1, after that screening, the LA premiere, everybody was going bananas for it. I can't wait.
Ray's already got our tickets.
Yep, 4:30, baby.
All right, what's next?
Harvest K writes, the DGA is the only union that didn't get success-based bonus or residuals on streaming. Wonder if members are having second thoughts on their deal.
The DGA has their own set of things that are in writing that actors and writers don't get. They were very satisfied with the deal they got.
Yes, they were.
Let's just say that. All right, what's next?
Joshua Nicholson writes, I've been lucky to live next to a theater that shows new releases for around $8.
Nice.
Is it possible for local theaters to survive with the big dogs?
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's going to be tough if you're like a 2-screen theater house, and on 500 yards up the road on this side, you got a 16-plex AMC, and 400 yards down the other way, you got a 21-plex Regal Cinema. That will be difficult, but that's not the case in a lot of places. So yeah, absolutely. Listen, we go to CinemaCon every year, and every year we meet tons of mom and pop shop, local, standalone independent theater owners that some struggling, well, especially during the pandemic, but often talking about how they're thriving.
Yeah.
So yes, in the right circumstances and in the right locations, and if done right, yes, they're absolutely successful.
Or if like Quentin Tarantino buys you and owns you.
Yeah,
like,
that's
the New Beverly and now the Vista.
The
Yeah,
Vista opened last night.
Yeah, the Vista. And
They showed True Romance there.
last time I
Very
saw a movie
nice.
there was Shadow of the Vampire. That was 2000.
All right, what's next?
Oh my Josh X12 writes, without seeing the movie, I wonder if these trailers were made before the Marvel's reshoots. Could this have been part of the story before the changes?
No, nothing in the trailers made me feel like it had anything to do with like reshoots or anything like that. I just really think that, look, without giving away spoilers, at some point in the movie, too late, they start to reveal way into the movie what the motivation of the villain is. I contend, and I talked about this on Open Mic yesterday, if they had begun the movie that way and had that as a part of the marketing campaign, like I was saying to Rob, I think one of the biggest weaknesses of the Marvels is the villain. But you could have improved the villain and our reception to the villain by about 50% if you had started the movie by telling us the motivation of the villain, rather than this villain showing up saying, hi, everybody, you've never seen me before, and I'm going to do stuff. And you'll have no idea why I'm doing stuff, but care about me. And they just didn't. All right, what's next?
Well, we can switch over to tips here. Or not, I always say tips, but our member chat questions.
All right.
The Brandon Salad writes, hey crew, saw the holdovers and had a great time. It was interesting since my friend and I were the only two youngsters in the audience of older patrons. Very cool seeing the differences in how we react to different scenarios throughout the film.
First of all, you got Paul Giamatti, and then you have his director from Sideways, which is
Alexander Payne.
Seriously, one of the best Oscar kind of movies.
So good.
Such a good. Thomas
Are you
Hayden
chewing
Church.
gum?
I'm not drinking fucking Merlot. It's such a good movie.
I love that. That was like my favorite. Are you chewing gum? You just brought that back to me. I died.
So funny. If you're a wine aficionado,
Yeah, and you're
it's
doing
one of the
wine tasting, but you're chewing gum.
And really wanted to see the Marvels for a second time, though. So instead of seeing the holdovers, I saw the Marvels for a second time. So I'm going to go see it this week. I'm excited about it. All right, what's next?
CJ Rebirth writes, I had a great time watching the Marvels in theaters. Loved that Kamala and her family and the three main ladies were the best part.
I don't think you're going to find a lot. I think even if you ask a lot of people who did not like the movie and you say, what was the best part of the movie? They're going to say the chemistry, Kamala and her family. I mean, and guys, if you have not watched Ms. Marvel, watch Ms. Marvel. She is one of the hopes for the MCU, I think is this character and the way they've designed her. They've made her infinitely likable. They made her like, and you could be any age, you can be whatever, you'll just see her and you will just adore her. And they did a good job of that in this movie.
Wouldn't it be ironic they introduced Captain Marvel thinking Captain Marvel will lead the Avengers, but really what's going to end up happening is Miss Marvel is going to lead the Young Avengers.
She could be the leader of the MCU. I'm telling you right now, until they get their acting gear. All right, what's next?
Red One Real Talk writes, For All Mankind is back, baby.
Yeah.
This show never fails to disappoint, and the angles they're taking with this season have me itching for more. Ray and Jonathan and Rob, have you caught the first episode? Rob's caught more than that.
Hell yeah. No, not yet.
No?
No, I'm going to go this week.
Good.
And Ray caught it.
Yeah, it just seems like there's going to be a lot of problems going to happen.
But is it good so far?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, the setup is great.
It's really interesting where they're going to go, where they're going with this.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, and you know what I love about For All Mankind? It never fails to immediately establish that space is the greatest killer of all. Mm-hmm. Space will kill anybody. It doesn't matter who you are, space will kill you.
All All right, guys, listen, normally we would go through more of our channel member questions, but we forgot to turn off super chats when we normally would turn them off. So we had a lot more super chats today than we were planning on getting to. So we have run out of time. For today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast, thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions. Number one, because you gave us really interesting things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the show, thank you guys so very much for your support. Hope to see you guys back again joining us tomorrow. So for Ray Ora, Jonathan Voico,
See ya.
Robert Meyer Burnett, my name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, threesome.